Hi, thank you for listening to this episode of Bloodhound Pix. As always, I am one of your hosts, Craig.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Josh.
So this so this episode is my pick, Craig, as I already said my name.
His
Um,
name's Craig.
yes. And so by the time you're hearing this, it will be December, but we're recording this in October, and I chose two movies that were I wanted to choose something that was dumb fun, basically, because by the time December rolls around in the States, we will have had an election where not to get too political on this, but where we either have elected a new president who may be slightly out of touch with the general population, like normal, or keep our old president who is horrible. I don't know. I
Yeah,
can't even.
we'll either have a new president or the world's fucking over.
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to because of that, I wanted to do something that will be a little bit dumb fun to either, I guess, be happy about the new one or just take our mind off of the misery. So, while I could do a whole episode just on the year 1979 as being an incredible moment in horror history, another year popped up, 1988, where two major movies in the horror genre were made, and I am talking about The Nest and Night of the Demons. But since Night of the Demons is kind of become this very big cult hit, I instead wanted to talk about the remake, 2009's Night of the Demons. So that's kind of how they're connected with 1988. Um, Before we begin, or we'll probably begin first with The Nest because it's the one that came out earlier, and yeah, and we'll get into that. So The Nest, I was going to pull up the IMDb, but I don't think it requires that much. The Nest takes place on this small island, like a ton of horror movies, where they are infested with cockroaches, and then the cockroaches are start to become carnivorous and eating animals and then humans. And it turns out that they were trying to this company was trying to create a cockroach that would eat other cockroaches, kill them, and then over the course of their lifetime they would just die out and they couldn't reproduce and stuff like that. It actually kind of has a lot of moments that felt like the science behind Guillermo del Toro's Mimic in a weird way, and like how the creature was designed and supposed to be. Now, with that being said, these cockroaches evolve because that's what happens in these type of movies. They kill people, and then whatever they eat, they become a hybrid of. So you start seeing a cockroach cat, and then a cockroach human, and then a cockroach thing creature. I don't That's like a combination of them. I don't know what it is, but it's a combination. So, with that is the general what happens. Then we follow Sheriff Tarbell, who is the sheriff of this small island. He's trying to save the day, but he's also trying to deal with his high school sweetheart who happens to come at the same time, Elizabeth Johnson, who is the daughter of the mayor, also the one who kind of made this deal with this whole company. And so they're trying to save the day with the help of the exterminator, Homer, and then they have an uneasy alliance with the scientist behind these cockroaches. And yeah, let's get into it about I I think I'll wait to give my well, okay, I'll just give my feelings so then I can hear your guys's because then we can jump off a little bit easier. This is my first time watching it, and I didn't know what to expect. I just put it on. It kind of has like a in the same vein as as slugs, or kind of, what would they call it? The Euro trash idea with movies like that are popping up in the 80s. And it has some great moments that I've talked to both of them, Josh and Cal, before, and we'll kind of get into this, where it feels like under somebody else's hands, like this could be an really inventive, outstanding movie. And there are moments that I think are great in it. It is very 80s schlock in the sense that, and this is the only complaint I have, that the sheriff has this long-term girlfriend beforehand, who there's even hints that he's going to marry. And then when his high school sweetheart comes, it's like all of these kind of quirky side characters and her are basically washed away just to become, fodder for um, cockroach meat, I guess. And I don't know. And I know that's kind of part of it, and I know that's the fun in it, but it is one of those things where you kind of have all these really fun characters. I love the exterminator, Homer, he's obviously the comic relief in a sense. And then you have the mad scientist. I can't remember her name now off the top of my head. But she appreciates the cockroaches. I think it's so funny that, and we'll get more into the scenes as we go along, but I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it was my first time watching it too. I thought it was fun for what it is. Yeah, you could definitely see that, like, it could have been better. It could have, either it could have been a more scary, serious, or it could have leaned more into just being funny, especially given the super cockroach plots, which is fucking ridiculous. The exterminator was the best. He should have been the lead, and it would have been way more fun. In general,
I was hoping, the whole time I know we're watching the sheriff, I know we're watching Elizabeth or whatever, and their whole love story, but I was wanting to watch the exterminator and the mad scientist. It's like, can we just have a movie with them?
Yes, I
And
agree.
I'd be so happy.
Yeah, and the exterminator wasn't. He at least was decent, or not the exterminator. The sheriff was. He was better than he could have been. Like, he could have been really wooden. He was a decent actor, so it wasn't like terrible. But yeah, their whole love story was like, I don't care. Whatever.
The town's dying. They know this, and then they still make time to then go have a sex scene. Like, it's not one of those where they do it and then everything goes to hell. It's like everything's already gone to hell, and then they decide to have this sex scene. And then kind of like, so what? You're kind of an awful sheriff if you know people are being killed.
He's also, the opening is maybe the funniest part because he's so casual about all the roaches in his house and one floating in his fucking coffee. Which is, it's kind of amazing they didn't make it more comedic after that fucking scene, which is so ridiculous. But they didn't.
That's
Josh.
That's the one thing Kyle, of course, has hit on, is that they set it up. The very first scene is literally hilarious, where we see the sheriff in his house, I guess it is, and he's got these fucking roaches in his house that have clearly, created an infestation of some sort. And he fucking, there's one floating in his coffee. He's on the phone, preoccupied. He doesn't realize it. Takes a big fucking swig of his coffee and then fucking spits out. It's like, okay, so you're telling me that that's not a comedic way to set this up? and then the comedy just goes away entirely for, a good 45 minutes. And it's like, I can't take this fucking shit seriously. And then when it does come back, like with the obviously we've mentioned that the exterminator guy or whatever he calls himself, he's not an exterminator, but
He's a
He's
I
like a
can't remember.
pest specialist
yeah,
or
there you
something.
go.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
all the best lines.
Yeah.
He does, and he's obviously everything he said. Well, maybe not everything, but most of what he says and most of what he does is fucking hilarious. And then that bit of comedy will come back into it, and it's like, no, you should have just made this a comedy movie because none of it's that interesting anyway until about the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And you set it up immediately with the first introduction of the sheriff guy to be a fucking comedy, and then you completely stop and try to make this shit serious, and it's like no.
Yeah. No, it that is definitely, it has these kind of weird tonal issues, and I talked about the hybrid, whatever the cockroaches eat, they become or mutate into. Yeah, the hybrid aspect, as Josh was saying, doesn't come in until towards the very end. Most of it is just cockroaches eating people. Well, eating animals and then people.
And you get all these fucking cockroach POVs, man. That shit's scary as hell.
And you get so many shots of just like, I guess it's rice that they dyed black sprinkled
Yeah.
on corpses. And you're just like, and they just linger too. And you're just like, that shit's not moving. It doesn't look real. Cut away.
Yeah. Now, so when the mad scientist, I'm just going to say, yeah, the mad scientist, when she comes around, first of all, her character, and I always appreciate this, and I haven't read the book, which is by Eli Cantors, and it's the same name, but so it could have been a non, not a male, but it's written like it was originally a male scientist in the same way that like the story goes that Ripley, an alien, was originally meant to be played by a man. Same with a movie that is really dear to my heart, Streets of Fire. The sidekick. I can't think of.
Oh, yeah. Amy Madigan.
Yeah, that character was originally written to be a man, and instead of then making it quote unquote stereotypical woman's role, they basically switched it and then changed a little bit of the he's to she's or stuff like that. So it gives it this it doesn't fall into stereotype. And there are moments where you can feel that, like there's a scene where he comes up and he's mad at the sheriff, and it'd be one of those scenes that obviously then the sheriff would punch the scientist, and they would get back up and then they would work it out or whatever. But he stops. He's like, if you weren't a woman, but there's kind of those elements. But there's this great scene where she's testing the cockroaches. She shoves her hand, it's like one of those loves in the tube, shoves her hands in there. The cockroaches swarm on this glove, and then the whole time, all of her acting, she's looks like she's so excited and nervous. I don't know, she's shaking a lot. And she's talking about how she's just like, oh, they're biting me. They're biting through this.
Yes.
And then the mayor, what is it? Elias. He's like, well, get your hand out. And she's just sitting there, and you start to see blood and all that. And she's just excited, and finally they pull her hand out. It's just bloody and like all cut up. And pretty much the rest of the movie, her hand's wrapped up. But it's moments like that that are just, I don't think were intentionally meant to be funny, but they're like, if they really went into that, like Josh and Cal were saying, like I think it could be so much better.
Yes. She also has the other great one-liner where
Yeah.
I don't know what scene it was, where she's just like, this sheriff's getting to be a pest. But also, yeah, that's like, somebody wrote that. That's a fucking, that's like right into what we're talking about. And then they just go back to being serious.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And then we have the exterminator. Not only is he doing all that stuff, he sees these cockroaches. Then he decides to go back to his house. Another kind of unintentionally, I think, maybe funny moment. He goes back to his house to make chemical concoction to take out these roaches that can't be killed by normal chemicals. He starts mixing it all, but he's so frantic that everything's spilling all over. He has the jar or whatever. I can't remember. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Says the line that he throws a cigarette in the house, and it just lands the chemicals, and he blows his own house up. There's a lot of that in this movie too, where a lot of
And it was
things blow up.
and that was played completely straight too. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, what the hell? That's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
as
shoulda leaned
he
into it.
knocks over that jug of whatever the fuck that was, and it has the biggest fucking letters on the planet that say flammable, and it's fucking dumping out all over the floor. He's got his smoke, and then he just fucking throws the cigarette right into the fucking. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. That's
So why would you
fucking-
throw? Why would you
Yeah,
throw
why
your
are you
cigarette
throwing
in
your
your
smoke in your own fucking house? Because
And
you got to blow it up. That's why.
They need an explosion, Josh.
Yeah. How else are you gonna blow that house up?
It would've-
So
Yeah. It would have been better if it was an accident and then we saw him
Yeah.
later pretending like he just had to do it, or just making some
Yeah.
shit up.
yeah,
Well, and then in the very next scene when he's in the car with the sheriff, he's got like the black soot all over his face.
Yes.
So again, how am I supposed to take any of this seriously?
so obviously there are some spoilers. I don't think it's necessary. We could probably give the whole movie, and it's not like it'd ruin a lot. But the other thing that was crazy to me, not crazy, but just unintentionally funny, is so Elias, who is the mayor, and he's been doing some bad stuff to help the town. There's this whole part where him and his daughter are in the house, and the cockroaches are coming through the bathroom, and they're trying to shut the bathroom door, but there's a rug in the way, and they keep trying to use their hands to move it, but they're getting bit. And so instead of just using his foot and sliding the rug, he decides he has to sacrifice himself and jumps in the bathroom, which makes obviously no sense at all, because he could have just kicked the rug or whatever. You could have even pulled the rug out. It doesn't matter. It's just a little rug. Everybody's dealt with a rug in the bathroom, I assume, at some point, and it hasn't been that big of an issue. But yeah, that is how he sacrifices himself. And it should be noted that this is produced by the Cormans. Well, Julie Corman specifically.
I was gonna say no. Roger wouldn't even put his fucking name on it.
Yeah, he would.
So that is. Does anybody else have any scenes that really stood out? Or
We have to mention that Homer wears Hawaiian shirts and rides a fucking
Yes.
moped.
he
Like,
does.
This cannot be. This has to be hammered home because it's important to everything. It's like the best thing in the movie.
And he doesn't know how. And he doesn't know how to drive a car.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he's told that he needs to drive a car, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know how to drive a car."
Which doesn't make sense because it's you can drive a moped. It's like, how different is it? Come on.
They just needed that so they could separate the characters.
Yeah.
For the plot device.
So great writing.
Yeah. But when it gets to the hybrid parts, it is interesting. I will, and like as Josh was saying, and we've talked about prior, you kind of wish more of that came in earlier.
I mean, that
Because
should have been at minute 20, because it
Yeah.
was literally, there was nothing that interesting in this movie, and bogging shit down with like the love story shit that honestly did not mean jack shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't fucking care about any of this. I don't fucking care. Roaches aren't scary. When you start introducing the hybrid things, and obviously like the first one we see was the cat, right?
Yeah.
So when you see, wow, it's like animatronic, somebody built this thing. It looks fucking great. It's like, it's too little too late. Like that should have come in. Literally, we can see and understand that there's a cockroach infestation, that these things aren't natural, but we needed to have these hybrid things like immediately. That should have been the threat, not fucking cockroaches.
I agree. Yeah, because they ate all those things prior, because they eat a guy pretty early on, and then nothing happens until much
Same with
later.
Yeah, they eat a dog too, and that never pops up again.
Well, that's the thing that she's doing the testing on, right?
Oh, yeah, but it never I don't think it makes a
Well, that
actual
probably wasn't in the
dog
budget.
hybrid. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, come on. This was produced by Julie Corman.
yeah. So, with that, I would say to check it out. It's one of those where there's some meme floating around and you'll see it occasionally, especially in horror, um, groups and stuff like that, where it says something like, "Instead of remaking good movies, remake films with great concepts but a bad execution." And I feel like The Nest is one of those where I would actually love to see somebody remake this and just yeah,
And have the hybrids way
yeah.
earlier.
So if you're listening to this and you're remaking that, hybrids earlier.
It's all
But
we ask.
speaking about losing a budget quick, let's move on to 2009's Night of the Demons, based on 1988's Night of the Demons. So, I'll start off by explaining 1988's Night of the Demons. The whole premise is it is one of the movies that is known as one of the better Evil Dead kind of knockoffs. If it was trying to be, if it wasn't, it's to be determined. But where you have people get possessed, it's ultra gory. It's it's right up there with demons as well, with like the knockoffs. Now that is these people get together for a intimate Halloween party, and it's revealed that this house that something very tragic has happened to it and all these people died in the past, that if so many souls are, I believe it's 7, right? If 7 souls are to perish in this house, then it would open the doors to hell and so on and so forth. So in 2009, it's the same type of premise, but instead the character of Angela Feld, who is kind of this weird outcast in the original and brings out these people. She is now known as she's played by Shanna Elizabeth, who you would know from 13 Ghosts. She was also the foreign exchange student, of course, in American Pie, and been a lot of other things. But she is kind of like the New Orleans it girl, I guess, in this weird way, where she hosts these huge parties and everybody comes to it. And this group goes to this party and with all of these people, and it ends up getting shut down by the police. And unfortunately, only 7 people remain, just enough to find the basement with these skeletons that then they awaken some of the demons, and then they have to fight for survival the rest of the night. It also has Monica Keena as I guess the main character, who was the protagonist in Freddy vs. Jason, and I think she's been on a ton of stuff. And then Edward Furlong as the traditional kind of hunk ex-boyfriend, but it's Edward Furlong. Anyways, so getting into it, this movie, and I don't know how much more to explain on that. If you haven't seen I'd highly recommend watching the original Night of the Demons first. If you like that, then move on. But this is kind of one where it's, again, as I mentioned this whole episode, the idea is around dumb fun, and this is it to the extreme. It was done in 2009, as I mentioned, New Orleans, and then with a $10 million budget that obviously they spent on the house, the early party scene, and I have no clue what else. It's disappeared. And
Well, yeah.
it does one of those weird things to me that a bunch of horror movies do, where it's like it starts out with this huge party scene, and then something happens where all the party guests have to leave. So it only has a couple people, and it doesn't feel purposeful. It feels like, oh, we didn't have enough in the budget to keep more people around for some reason. But as the night goes through, people die, people become demons, and yeah, that's basically it. It's stupid, and I want to just hear because I know one of you actually really likes it. One of you, this was their first time watching it and does not. So let's do it.
Yeah, guilty as charged. It was my first time. It's been a long time since I've seen the original, which I don't really love that much to begin with.
The original is known just it has an infamous scene that deals with lipstick going into a nipple.
Yeah, I
And if
remember
you
watching it as a kid, and that we were just watching it to see boobs, and it was satisfying in that respect. But yeah, I don't remember really giving a shit. Sorry, Night of the Demons fan. Sorry, Josh. This was all the things you just said and more. It was just all that. So many like weird tropes that I kind of hate, where it's like the it girl throwing the cool party that everybody goes to, but she's a total bitch. I don't know, all the characters you were like, I fucking hate all these people and I want you to die. Probably except Monica Keena, I guess, because she was like the least awful person. And she does have cool shit towards the end. Like to me, it got way better towards the very end when she was the last person left. But
she
all
kind
the
of
stuff
has like
before,
a Bruce Campbell suit up scene. I don't know, a ton of movies like
yes,
that have
yeah.
it where she's making the weapons and it does the quick flashes and stuff like that.
It's also weird to me that they didn't make more of the New Orleans setting. Like
Mhm.
obviously, I guess it's a limited budget and it's gonna just be in a house. But like even the stuff they shot, even the stuff before they get to the house, isn't very interesting to look at. And I'm like, man, you're in New Orleans. It's like a really atmospheric location, and this is all just kind of boring shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh, you know what I love though? I think the best part of the movie is all of the like the opening and the flashbacks, all the silent movie stuff is fucking amazing. I would have watched a whole movie of that over everything else that happened by
And
far.
speaking of the New Orleans setting at the very beginning, they stole all of the Beyond for that,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, Jesus Christ. That's really obvious what you're doing. But I mean it does work, and
Yeah.
it is one of the more interesting things that they did from a stylistic standpoint. But yeah, I was just like, oh my God, why don't you just shoot the Beyond shot for shot? Because,
Well, did you
that
also notice it in the party? You have there was another movie that was, of course, way more popular that somebody was dressed up as Victor Crowley in like the Halloween party.
Oh, I didn't even
That was
notice that.
and the Saw puppet.
I saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I think that was the same producers or something. I don't know. There's some connection to Saw.
There had to have
With
been,
it.
right? I mean,
Probably.
there's no way they could use that shit.
So, Josh, what were your thoughts on Night of the Demons, the remake?
I mean, it's largely pointless. And I say that not minding the movie at all, but it was largely pointless. I mean, they stuck so goddamn close to the original story, and about the only thing that was really different is obviously, it takes place in 2009 instead of 1988. So a lot of shit was like updated out of necessity. And they made the characters much more annoying, like all of them except for Monica Keena. I'm not sure why that was a decision, because it's just like all of these fuckers are just, it's like you all have such punchable faces. And but I mean, even the stuff that they added and altered from Kevin Tenney's original, I mean, it didn't really work very well. And I think it was it was fine, I guess, that they, were able to find this room that, the housekeeper back in the day put the spells on the walls because she fucking knew what was up. I mean, it's fine, I guess, but then it's like, then we're stuck in this room. We can't,
Yeah.
we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to just sit in this fucking room. And and it was like, I don't know. I feel like it's largely pointless. I think when remakes are done right, you obviously need to keep some of what was brought up, especially because Night of the Demons, the original film, is good. It's not like you could really improve it, and they don't. But I like the kind of shit, like the Linnea Quigley cameo, which obviously she's one of the main actresses in the original film. There's a cameo of her because it's set on Halloween, where she's dressed up as her character, and I thought that was amazing. But yeah, I mean, it didn't change hardly anything. They used some of the identical scenes, like the lipstick thing that we've mentioned. Make it different. You could do something that you could do something similar, but make it different. I mean,
well, they added the, I don't know how graphic.
yeah,
the
way it ended up.
Yeah, for the
But
lipsticks.
I mean, it's like, you still essentially did the exact same thing. I mean, I don't know. And talking about the characters, like, I think that's where their budget went too, by the way, because I mean, all those fuckers, especially in 2009, had to have been expensive. Maybe not Edward Furlong, but he's still Edward Furlong, and motherfucker is gonna say, "I was in T2, bitch, so you're gonna pay me."
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's where their money went. But he was probably the best part, because it was like kind of watching a train wreck where you just can't look away. He seemed drunk all the time, and he also just seemed like they just said, "Dude, just show up on set. We don't care what you're wearing. We don't, just show up
So
and act like yourself. You're not even really playing a character. You're just Edward Furlong."
His character was.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So his character is supposed to be the ex-boyfriend of Maddie, who is Monica Keena, and he's not there for the Halloween party. There's this whole backstory with him that's, again, is pointless, where he is a drug dealer who isn't able to make back his money, and so basically this kingpin, or whatever you want to call it, tells him, "Well, I'm giving you tonight to get me my money." So he goes. So Edward Furlong, also known as Colin, goes to this party to then sell his drugs. Okay. And then when the cops come, he throws his drugs down
to the basement or whatever.
Yeah, which is why they go down there.
We have to talk about this. This is really the thing that I most want to talk about in this whole movie. So he goes to see this British drug dealer in New Orleans named Nigel, who's upstairs of a strip club. And they're having this conversation, and Nigel's getting a blowjob and casually casually drumming Edward Furlong out. And this is a trope that we've seen in other movies, usually not good movies, but it always happens. And it doesn't make any fucking sense, because this would be funny if Nigel was playing into the pleasure of what's happening, but saying mean things, but instead he just acts like nothing's happening, and there's just a girl pretending to do what she's doing. And it's just like, what? Now I hate this, because you're like, I'm going to be clever and put this scene in here, and it just doesn't, there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
It's awful. It just makes me angry. Like, why are you doing this?
I'd say the MVP, like when talking about Homer as the exterminator, the MVP for me was I don't even know his name. It's kind of like the one you would expect to be not the the boy next door. He's like the more quirky,
the third wheel kind of guy.
Yeah. And he pops up. There's several points where some guy takes a bag of a kid's candy, he shoots him with a paintball gun in the beginning, yelling. I forgot. No costume, no candy.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he's basically the one that's bringing all of the I mean, most it is very more tongue in cheek, but he's bringing that more obviously. And so for me, yeah, he was kind of the one I was willing to watch a little bit more, obviously Monica Keena and him. Everybody else were rough. Are there I mean, it was definitely a 2000s remake in the sense in the horror movie where they very over sexualized it. They made sure to get all the best looking people, well, besides Edward Furlong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those things which happened a lot in the 2000s of just
Well,
very tight clothes, stuff like that.
well, and going off what Josh said with what I think too about the budget is it's also that casting of people that are names, but no one that we actually care about. So,
Yeah.
it's this over sexualized.
Exactly.
It's all these people that I'm like, yeah, I've seen you and stuff, but I don't, you're not making me go see this movie at all.
Yeah.
So you kind of just wasted your money and you're not a great actor. And this is just like, that was a waste.
Yeah. But, there is some great before the budget goes completely out and a couple of the characters basically are reverted to their demon form as just rubber masks by the end. There is some kind of great little horror gore moments, I think. There's the, boob getting ripped off, or scratched off, I don't know. There's
The chick gets her face ripped off.
yeah,
That was decent.
yeah. So there's, several like that. There's a weird kind of sex scene turn into demons thing that goes on. Um,
And that's
like
all they
almost
want to do is fuck too.
yeah.
Speaking of, that's like you turn into a demon, you don't you want to kill, but
Yeah.
you want to fuck just as bad as
That
you want to kill.
that's one of the things is that I
For some
remember
reason.
yeah, in my notes, it's like, so the whole thing is you have to get 7 souls before sunrise on, Halloween day. And, they're sitting there having basically this orgy while the characters are hold up the surviving characters are, they're held up into this secure room, and it feels like, so wouldn't you as demons be like you're really just wasting time having this orgy right now? Like I'd be more frantic if I was a demon to try and make sure I can get these 7 souls or whatever it may be. But no, they're just too excited about sex.
Well, you would think they would just seduce everyone because that's how
Yeah,
they get the first couple people, and it works. It's
yeah.
like, why don't you just seduce all 7 people? It's probably not that hard. They're going to be vulnerable once they're having sex with you, and then they're a demon, and then
And they've
you
been
guys
drinking
take over.
heavily.
Yeah, and they're all idiots.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, any last words on Night of the Demons or The Nest? Which one would you recommend for
I would recommend The Nest far over Night of the Demons. I mean, I could see getting drunk and watching Night of the Demons
Yeah.
with some friends for sure.
yeah, I mean the biggest thing with especially like, Kyle mentioned that he doesn't really like the original film. I love the original film, and it's just Evil Dead but set on Halloween. I mean, fuck, how could you go wrong? You know, um, and they did nothing to improve or even really try to improve. In fact, it almost seems like they tried to make it worse in numerous ways.
Mhm.
And really, the only thing that for me that the Nest is guilty of is it didn't have the budget, and it was obviously written to be boring and not very interesting until about the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
If they were able to do, we've mentioned it like no other. If they were able to do like the hybrid creature shit at minute 20, that film would be, borderline fucking impeccable. Night of the Demons, not so much.
No. If you got to choose between 2009 and 1988, just go with 1988 every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so there you have it. Hope you enjoy, and of course, this will be airing in December, so there are some movies to enjoy depending on what we are at in our country or the world. As always, thank you for listening.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Produced by Josh Lee, Craig Drum, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Editing by Kyle Hintz.